She said I needed a digital detox punishment to learn her worth, so I agreed to 6 weeks instead of 1, and she packed her bags that same night. I never expected Melody to turn a simple missed video call into a relationship-ending ultimatum, but looking back, it perfectly captured everything wrong between us. I was in the middle of debugging a critical satellite communication system at work when my phone started buzzing with her call. The Phoenix Aerospace Lab was in crisis mode. We had a multi-million-dollar satellite experiencing data transmission errors, and the entire engineering team was racing against a deadline to identify the source code malfunction before the client meeting. I sent Melody a quick text explaining I'd call her back in 2 hours, thinking she'd understand that my job occasionally required intense focus. When I finally got home at nearly midnight after successfully isolating the bug in the telemetry processing module, I found 17 missed calls and a barrage of texts that escalated from concern to accusations to outright hostility. She'd apparently interpreted my work emergency as deliberate disrespect, choosing to believe I was ignoring her rather than managing a genuine crisis that could have cost our company a major contract. I called her immediately, expecting to explain the situation and move forward, but she answered with an announcement that caught me completely off guard. She decided to implement what she called a digital detox punishment, blocking me on all social media platforms, refusing to answer my calls, and cutting off all communication for exactly 1 week to teach me how much I'd miss her and help me realize her true value in my life. The psychology behind this manipulation was transparent. She wanted me panicking, begging, proving my devotion through desperate attempts to reach her. I looked around my organized condo, thought about the peaceful evening I'd just lost to her dramatics, and made a decision that would change everything between us. Instead of protesting or pleading, I calmly suggested we extend her digital detox to 6 weeks rather than 1, explaining that if the goal was for me to truly understand her worth, a longer period would provide more comprehensive results. The silence on her end stretched for nearly 30 seconds before she responded with suspicious enthusiasm, clearly thinking she'd found a way to make me suffer even more intensely for my supposed transgression. She agreed to the extended timeline with vindictive satisfaction, probably already planning how she'd graciously forgive me once I'd learned my lesson about prioritizing her above everything else in my life. Within an hour, she'd packed an overnight bag with her essential yoga gear, meditation cushions, and enough crystals to stock a new age store, announcing she'd be staying at her friend Luna's downtown loft to maintain proper energetic boundaries during our communication break. As she gathered her things, she delivered what she clearly intended as a devastating final blow, informing me that this separation would help me understand what life looked like without her positive influence and loving energy. I helped her load her car, wished her well on her spiritual journey, and watched her drive away with a sense of relief I hadn't experienced in months. The moment her taillights disappeared around the corner, I realized something profound had just happened. For the first time in our 2-year relationship, I was genuinely excited about having my space to myself. The next 3 days became an archaeological expedition through my own home as I discovered just how completely Melody had colonized every room with her spiritual paraphernalia and self-improvement obsessions. I started in the master bedroom, where I found meditation cushions stacked in the walk-in closet alongside singing bowls, sage bundles, and an entire shelf dedicated to crystals she claimed would align our relationship energy and promote career success. The bathroom had been transformed into an aromatherapy laboratory with essential oil diffusers, bath salts organized by chakra color, and a collection of face masks that cost more than my monthly utilities. Moving to the living room, I uncovered vision boards tucked behind furniture, collages featuring luxury vacation destinations, designer handbags, and engagement rings with price tags that exceeded my annual aerospace engineering salary. But the real discovery came when I opened the hall closet and found her library of manipulation disguised as self-help books with titles like Training Your Alpha Male, Making Him Commit Through Emotional Leverage, and The High-Value Woman's Guide to Relationship Control. I'd never seen these books before, which explained how she'd gradually learned to weaponize psychology against me while I thought we were simply growing closer as a couple. Each room revealed another layer of calculated influence, feng shui mirrors positioned to redirect energy flow, plants chosen specifically to enhance romantic vibration, and even furniture arrangements designed to maximize her control over household decisions. I rented a climate-controlled storage facility in Tempe, recognizing that proper documentation would be essential if this situation escalated beyond a simple relationship break. I methodically photographed every item before packing, creating a comprehensive inventory that included purchase dates, estimated values, and photographic evidence of where each object had been placed in my home. The process took nearly 2 full days, but my engineering background had taught me the value of systematic organization and thorough record-keeping. I packed her belongings with the same precision I used for satellite component assembly, delicate items wrapped in bubble wrap, electronics secured in anti-static bags, and everything labeled with detailed descriptions and condition assessments. The storage unit received her meditation cushions, crystal collection, essential oil inventory, yoga equipment, vision boards, book collection, and approximately 47 houseplants she'd insisted were necessary for positive energy flow. The final step involved updating every digital system in my home, changing smart lock access codes, updating streaming service passwords, modifying security system settings, and most importantly, opening new investment accounts since I discovered she'd been tracking my spending habits through shared banking apps. I activated 2-factor authentication on everything, revoked her access to my home automation system, and changed my Wi-Fi network name and password. When I finished sanitizing my digital presence, I realized how much of my personal privacy I'd gradually surrendered under the guise of relationship transparency and trust. Standing in my reclaimed living space, I felt like an archaeologist who just uncovered evidence of an ancient civilization that had mysteriously vanished, leaving behind only artifacts that told the story of someone who'd been slowly and systematically establishing dominance over territory that was never rightfully theirs to claim. During weeks 2 through 4 of our digital detox, I rediscovered parts of myself that had been systematically erased during my relationship with Melody, starting with my lifelong passion for astrophotography that she dismissed as antisocial and time-consuming. I dusted off my telescope equipment, which had been relegated to the garage after she complained that astronomy club meetings interfered with our quality time together and made me unavailable for her spontaneous date ideas. The first clear night after she left, I drove to the desert preserve outside Phoenix and spent 6 hours photographing the Orion Nebula with a clarity I hadn't achieved in months, remembering why I'd originally chosen aerospace engineering and how much satisfaction I derived from understanding celestial mechanics. I rejoined my astronomy club the following weekend and discovered that several members had been asking about my absence, genuinely concerned that something had happened to me after I'd stopped attending meetings without explanation. During our regular stargazing session at South Mountain, I realized how effectively Melody had isolated me from meaningful friendships by creating dramatic emergencies whenever I tried to maintain relationships that didn't revolve around her needs and emotional requirements. She'd perfected the art of scheduling meltdowns that coincidentally occurred every time I planned activities with other people, forcing me to choose between supporting her emotional crises or maintaining connections with friends who shared my actual interests. A chance encounter at the telescope equipment store in Scottsdale led to an unexpected conversation with Riley, the soft-spoken planetarium director at Arizona Science Center who was browsing telephoto lenses for an upcoming solar eclipse expedition. We discovered a shared fascination with deep space photography and spent 2 hours discussing camera modifications, light pollution filters, and the technical challenges of long-exposure astrophotography in desert conditions. Riley suggested coffee to continue our conversation about the upcoming conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, and I found myself genuinely excited about spending time with someone who understood my passion for space exploration rather than viewing it as competition for attention. Over the next several weeks, our coffee meetings evolved into planning sessions for a collaborative photography project documenting the winter constellation patterns, something I'd always wanted to attempt but had never found a compatible partner willing to invest the necessary time and patience. Riley's approach to relationships felt revolutionary. After 2 years with Melody, she contributed equally to conversations, respected my work schedule, and actually enhanced my interests rather than demanding I sacrifice them for her entertainment. When Melody's first communication breach arrived via text message during week 4, crying emojis followed by desperate questions about whether I missed her yet and dramatic declarations about learning important lessons during our separation, I responded by sending her the storage unit address with GPS coordinates and facility hours, then immediately blocked her number across all platforms. The contrast between Riley's genuine enthusiasm for shared adventures and Melody's manipulative emotional theatrics became impossible to ignore, and I realized I'd been accepting crumbs of affection from someone who viewed love as a transaction rather than experiencing the natural compatibility that develops between people with complementary interests and mutual respect. Melody's campaign to destroy my reputation began during week 5 when she launched a coordinated social media assault through her wellness influencer network, painting me as an emotionally abusive partner who had systematically isolated and controlled her through financial manipulation and psychological warfare. Her Instagram stories featured carefully cropped screenshots of our text conversations, edited to remove context and make my reasonable boundaries appear sinister, accompanied by tearful videos about escaping toxic relationships and finding the strength to speak her truth. She recruited her sister Paige, a self-proclaimed life coach with 14,000 followers, to create a series of educational posts about narcissistic partners who discard empathic women when they demand basic respect and consideration. The posts featured generic stock photos of crying women alongside captions that described my behavior in clinical terms designed to make me sound like a textbook case of emotional abuse, complete with bullet-pointed warning signs that other women should watch for in their own relationships. Multiple mutual friends received invitations to group chats specifically created to discuss my alleged psychological manipulation, with Melody positioning herself as a survivor seeking support while systematically gathering intelligence about my current activities and emotional state. She crafted a narrative that portrayed our 6-week digital detox as my cruel punishment for her reasonable request for communication, conveniently omitting her role in proposing the separation and my suggestion to extend it voluntarily. The campaign reached peak absurdity when her former roommate Cash appeared at my aerospace laboratory demanding explanations for what he'd been told was my sudden abandonment of Melody during her mental health crisis, threatening to involve human resources if I didn't immediately contact her to resolve their concerns about my character. I calmly showed Cash the security footage from my building's cameras, which captured Melody's dramatic exit with luggage and theatrical declarations about teaching me lessons, followed by her own text messages explicitly stating that she was implementing a punishment designed to make me appreciate her value. After reviewing the timeline and seeing the vindictive satisfaction in Melody's original messages about extending our separation, Cash apologized for believing her version of events and admitted that similar stories had circulated about her previous relationships with 2 other engineers who had mysteriously become controlling monsters the moment they failed to meet her escalating demands. The irony wasn't lost on me that someone who specialized in manipulating perception through social media had created such an elaborate fiction about manipulation while simultaneously demonstrating the very behavior she was falsely attributing to me. But I recognized that engaging with her narrative would only provide more ammunition for her campaign and decided that documentation without retaliation was the most effective strategy for protecting my reputation and mental health. Week 6 brought an unexpected visit from Melody's father Victor, a retired police detective who arrived unannounced at my condo demanding explanations for what he'd been told was my heartless abandonment of his daughter during her emotional breakdown and subsequent mental health crisis. Victor had driven 3 hours from Tucson after receiving frantic calls from Melody describing my alleged psychological abuse and financial control, expecting to confront a manipulative predator who had systematically destroyed his daughter's self-esteem and independence. I invited him inside and methodically presented the documented timeline of our relationship's end, including security camera footage of Melody's theatrical departure, screenshots of her original text messages proposing the digital detox punishment, and my calm suggestion to extend it to 6 weeks for maximum effectiveness. After reviewing the evidence and seeing Melody's vindictive satisfaction about implementing her lesson plan, Victor's expression shifted from protective anger to resigned recognition, and he admitted that this exact pattern had destroyed her previous relationships with 2 other engineers who had been similarly vilified when they failed to meet her escalating emotional and financial demands. He revealed that Melody had learned these manipulation tactics during her brief marriage to a wealthy tech entrepreneur who had eventually divorced her for similar behavior, paying substantial alimony to avoid prolonged legal battles that she threatened to wage through social media campaigns designed to destroy his business reputation. Victor apologized for believing her version of events without investigation and warned me that Melody was planning a dramatic public confrontation designed to force me into a reconciliation through embarrassment and social pressure, suggesting I document everything for potential legal action. The confrontation materialized 3 days later when Melody staged a crying breakdown in my workplace cafeteria during lunch hour, demanding to know why I was destroying her life and publicly accusing me of emotional abuse while live streaming the encounter to her social media followers as evidence of my cruelty. Security personnel escorted her from the building while she continued filming and narrating her victim's story for her audience, claiming that my refusal to engage with her theatrics proved her point about my heartless and controlling nature. My supervisor recommended consulting with the company's legal department about obtaining a restraining order, since Melody's workplace intrusion violated several security protocols and created potential liability issues for the aerospace facility, especially given her decision to broadcast sensitive location information to unknown social media followers during an active national security project. The storage facility in Tempe became ground zero for Melody's most elaborate drama production when she arrived with a 3-person film crew during week 8, demanding immediate access to her belongings for what she described as a documentary expose about toxic masculinity and financial abuse in modern relationships. She claimed I had illegally imprisoned her personal property and threatened to sue both me and the storage company for violating her constitutional rights, while her cameraman captured every moment for her growing YouTube series about surviving narcissistic partners. The facility manager calmly explained that I had prepaid for 3 months of storage, provided proper documentation of abandoned property, and followed all legal procedures for notification, but Melody insisted that her belongings were being held hostage as part of my psychological warfare campaign. She contested the monthly charges despite never having contributed to rent or utilities during our relationship, claimed that I had deliberately chosen an inconvenient location to make retrieval difficult, and demanded that the facility waive all fees as compensation for my alleged abuse of their system. When the prepaid period expired and Melody still refused to claim her belongings or pay the accumulated fees, the facility scheduled a public auction according to standard abandoned property procedures, which sent her into a social media frenzy about corporate complicity in domestic abuse. Meanwhile, Riley had gradually moved into my condo after we realized that our relationship was developing into something serious and sustainable, splitting all expenses equally and contributing her own furniture and decorations to create a genuinely shared space. The contrast between Riley's mature approach to cohabitation and Melody's parasitic colonization of my home became even more apparent as we planned our upcoming trip to Qley for the total solar eclipse, something I'd dreamed of photographing for years but had been forced to abandon when Melody declared international travel selfish and financially irresponsible. Riley not only encouraged my astrophotography ambitions but had secured research funding from the planetarium to document the eclipse's effect on local wildlife, turning my personal passion into a collaborative scientific expedition that would benefit both our careers. We spent evenings planning camera angles, reviewing weather patterns, and coordinating equipment logistics with an enthusiasm that reminded me what healthy partnerships actually felt like when both people contributed skills and excitement rather than one person demanding constant entertainment from the other. The storage unit situation provided unexpected comic relief as Melody's attempts to weaponize sympathy backfired spectacularly when other customers witnessed her filming tantrums and recognized the manipulative behavior that most rational adults could identify from considerable distance. Her YouTube documentary about storage facility conspiracies attracted more criticism than support, with viewers questioning why a grown woman couldn't afford $47 monthly for her own belongings and pointing out the obvious contradictions in her victim narrative. 2 months after our digital detox ended, the storage facility auction provided the perfect finale to Melody's elaborate victim performance when her entire collection of spiritual paraphernalia and self-help materials sold for exactly $347 to bargain hunters who had no idea they were purchasing the remnants of a failed manipulation campaign. Her expensive yoga equipment, crystal collection, meditation cushions, and library of relationship control manuals attracted minimal interest from practical buyers who viewed them as overpriced novelties rather than the life-changing investments she'd claimed them to be during our relationship. The irony was absolutely perfect. Someone who had spent years accumulating spiritual tools designed to manifest abundance and attract prosperity had created so little actual value that strangers wouldn't pay premium prices for her carefully curated collection of enlightenment accessories. She attempted one final manipulation by claiming I had stolen irreplaceable family heirlooms that were mixed in with her belongings, threatening legal action and demanding compensation for sentimental items that couldn't be replaced at any price. But her own social media posts from the previous 2 years provided comprehensive evidence that everything in storage had been purchased during our relationship using money she'd requested from me for various emergencies and spiritual investments. Victor called the following week to apologize again and reveal that Melody had finally entered therapy, but only after her new boyfriend, a life coach she'd met at a wellness retreat who specialized in helping women discover their authentic power, had dumped her for the exact same controlling and manipulative behavior that had ended our relationship. The life coach had apparently recognized her techniques immediately, having dealt with similar clients who used spiritual language to justify emotional manipulation and financial parasitism, and had documented her escalation tactics before ending their relationship to protect his own mental health and professional reputation. Meanwhile, Riley and I returned from Qley with incredible photographs of the total solar eclipse and a deeper appreciation for what genuine partnership actually felt like when both people contributed skills, enthusiasm, and financial responsibility to shared adventures. Our eclipse expedition had been featured in several astronomy magazines, leading to speaking opportunities and collaborative projects that enhanced both our careers while strengthening our relationship through mutual accomplishment rather than one-sided sacrifice. We announced our engagement 3 months later with photos from our successful eclipse photography adventure, choosing a simple announcement that focused on our shared excitement about future explorations rather than expensive ring displays or romantic manipulation tactics designed to generate social media attention. Melody's influencer career collapsed shortly afterward when several former friends publicly exposed her manipulation tactics and revealed the calculated nature of her victim performances, with former colleagues sharing their own stories about her systematic attempts to exploit sympathy for financial and emotional gain. The wellness community that had initially supported her narrative began recognizing the patterns that Victor had warned me about, and her follower count dropped dramatically as people realized they'd been manipulated by someone who specialized in weaponizing vulnerability for personal advancement. I occasionally wondered if she'd learned anything meaningful from the destruction of her elaborate schemes, but ultimately decided that monitoring her progress wasn't my responsibility or concern since I'd found something infinitely better in Riley, who appreciated honesty over manipulation and contributed genuine value rather than demanding constant proof of devotion through financial sacrifice. The universe had rewarded me for taking Melody at her word when she declared our digital detox punishment, teaching me that sometimes the most effective response to manipulation is enthusiastic agreement that calls the manipulator's bluff and exposes their true intentions to everyone involved, including themselves.